Can you hear me? Awesome. Good afternoon. Well, it's raining right now, and in some places when it rains, that's a deal breaker. Some parts of the world, it rains and you can't go anywhere, and they literally just cannot get to church. So it's great that you are here. And it may seem like a small thing because we have cars, we have buildings and all that, but in some parts of the world, it really is difficult to get to church because of the rain. So it's good to be thankful that you're here, and I am thankful that you're here. Alrighty. Well, I have noticed that there's a sort of a theme that goes on at church. There's a theme that's been for the past few decades, and that theme would be evangelism. Evangelism. That's to be compared with the theme of the world nowadays, and that is outreach. Everyone in the world wants to be what? They want to be a celebrity. They want to be viral. They want to make an impact. They want to reach out to as many people in the world as they can, but to get them to know who? Well, to get them to know you. That's what the world wants. But church and evangelism is a bit different. Now, it starts out the same. You're trying to reach as many people in the world as you can, but to get them to know who? To get them to know God. It's a bit different. And today I wanted to talk about evangelism. But first, I'd like to talk about some reasons or some things that are getting in our way when we try to evangelize, when we try to go out to others and teach to them about Jesus. Well, you could say, well, they're not going to listen to what I have to say. They're going to reject the message. Or maybe I'm soft-spoken, which that may sound weird coming out of my mouth because I'm definitely not soft-spoken. But many people are, and that honestly holds them back from evangelizing. A lack of knowledge. I don't know enough. I don't know. I wouldn't know what to say. Or I don't want to lose my friends. I've been friends with them for so long, and I don't want to lose that relationship. Well, where I come from, those can be called excuses. And I would like to address some of those. But first, I'd like to talk about the 4 C's of evangelism. And some of you have maybe heard about this, but I'd like to explain what they are, the 4 C's. The first C being care. The second C being consciousness. The third C being courage. And the fourth C being craft. Could everyone please turn to Colossians chapter 4, verses 2 through 6? Thank you, Brandon, for reading that, by the way. And we're not going to be here long. But I'd like to show you that this passage shows the 4 C's. We can see the 4 C's in this passage. Starting in verse 2, and I'll stop to explain each verse. Continue earnestly in prayer, being vigilant in it with thanksgiving. All right. So why do we pray? Why do we? Okay, let's say I pray for Don Wilson, brother Don Wilson. I pray for him. Maybe he's not feeling all too well, and I'm going to pray for him that he gets better. I pray to God and I say, God, please help him. And why would I do that? Because I care about him, right? And that's what care is. I want him to be better, whether physically, emotionally, and most importantly, spiritually. That was just one example, but there are many, many different ways to carry this out. But Paul's saying, pray for us, care about us. Please be vigilant in your prayers, all right? Meanwhile, praying also for us that God would open to us a door for the word to speak the mystery of Christ, for which I am also in chains, that I might make it manifest as I ought to speak. All right, so it says, pray that God will open a door for us. Do you think that God opening doors for us is dependent on whether we pray for it or not. Now, I would venture to say that he's going to open doors for us anyways. I mean, we still should pray about it because it shows that we care. But God opens doors for us all the time, and a consciousness we need to have, and that frame of mind. Sorry, I'm messing with this. The frame of mind is that instead of looking at the world as people, we should be looking at them as souls that need to know Jesus. Not just people. Not just people that we socialize with. We need to look at them as open doors that we can talk to them about Jesus. So we need to care about them. We need to have a state of mind, a consciousness that says they need to know about Jesus. There's courage. Let's continue on, and we will learn more about courage. Walk in wisdom towards those who are outside, redeeming the time. When we walk outside, when we go out and we want to talk to people, that requires courage, right? Walk in wisdom towards those who are outside. Walk in wisdom. In wisdom. Okay, well, that's a bit different. Now, see, there's courage, and that's going out and doing something, whether it's slaying a dragon or something, but walking in wisdom, that's a bit different. If I said, I'm going to go slay that dragon, and then I go out to meet that dragon, and then he eats me, that showed courage. But what was I lacking? Wisdom. I was lacking a plan. So, yes, have courage. Go out to people and talk to them about Jesus, but don't forget about wisdom. Don't forget to walk in wisdom towards those who are outside. Let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer each one. And this leads us to craft. You know, I don't know if you noticed with all these, but if you are deficient in even one of these, the whole thing falls apart. And it's the same with craft. You could care about someone. You could know that they need to learn about Jesus. You could have the courage to even talk to them. But if you're cursing, if you're babbling on about someone, you're gossiping, well, that's not going to reflect too well on the message of Jesus, is it? So we need to have good craft. We need to know how to talk to people. We need to have our speech be seasoned with salt. All right, so those are the 4 C's. And now I'd like to share with you a story. The story about a dude that had a whole bunch of demons inside him. If you would, please turn to Mark chapter 5. So before this, just give you a little bit of context. Jesus... well, he's been doing his thing. He's got his disciples, and he decides to get on a boat with some of his disciples. And as he's traveling along in this boat, there is a big old storm, terrible. Everyone on there is afraid, except for Jesus, when he says the infamous line, "Peace, be still." So they arrive, and we'll pick it up from there in verse 1. Then they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of, Gerasenes. And when he had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one could bind him, not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. And the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces. Neither could anyone tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him. All right, let's stop there for a little bit. So we set the stage, and now we got a character. And I'll be honest, this character may be the scariest person I could ever hope to imagine. So just imagine this guy. He's broken. He's got demons inside him. He's got shackles, chains. They're broken. He's got cuts. He's cutting himself. This guy is pretty freaky, and I'm pretty sure his hair is not as good as mine either. So this is a scary guy, and I'll be honest, if I saw this guy in real life, I would run the opposite direction. But let's see what Jesus does. And he cried out with a loud voice, the guy with the demons, and said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me." For he, Jesus, said to him, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." Then he asked him, "What is your name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Also he begged him earnestly that he would not send them out of the country. All right, let's stop there for a little bit. So this guy, the scary dude, all the demon head guy, weird demon, ugh. Okay, anyways, this demon guy, he runs up to Jesus and he says, "Hey, Jesus, leave me alone, please. Just let me do what I'm doing." That's sort of interesting. And this crazy guy probably hasn't even talked to people in a long time, is now, he sees Jesus off in the distance, he runs towards him, and he worships him. That's a little interesting. Even the demons know that he is the authority. So Jesus obviously says, "Get out of there, you demons. Get out of there. That's weird. Don't be in that guy. That's ugh." And then he asks him a sort of surprising question. A question that we don't, I would never ask this guy. "What is your name?" Okay. Think about this dude. Torn, ugly, demon. Those aren't very good words to say. And when do you think the last time this guy was even asked a question like that? So much has been talked to. Now Jesus is here and he asks him, "What is your name?" How much of an impact do you think that this would have had on that man afterwards, after all this? Let's say he just gets all the demons outside his head, and then he remembers, that guy, Jesus, he asked me what my name was. No one asked me what my name was. And so, to bring this back to evangelism, because now it's just been a story so far, but to bring this back to evangelism, have you ever met someone that just looked hopeless? Oh, they would never think about God. They don't want to hear what I have to say. Their case is hopeless. I declare it. Therefore, it must be true, right? You know, maybe it is hopeless. If I went up to this person, you know, I don't think I would be able to change this guy. But guess what? I would not be the guy changing him. Jesus is the guy changing him, and there is no case too difficult for Jesus. When you go out and evangelize, and maybe you declare a case hopeless, but does that mean that you don't go and you preach your message about Jesus? No, you do go to him. There is no case too difficult. And therefore, since you have Jesus on your side, there's no place for fear. Jesus was not afraid. You do not see him being afraid. In fact, you see the demons being afraid. Extraordinary compassion is needed. Jesus, he immediately doesn't even know this guy, although we know that he really does. He immediately shows some kindness. And think about this. I know sometimes when I talk to someone about Jesus, the first thing that I talk to them about is Jesus. And what am I forgetting? I just go right up to them. I say, "Hey, have you ever heard about this guy, Jesus?" What am I forgetting? I'm talking to them a lot about Jesus. Talking to them. But I'm not showing them the love of Jesus. And wouldn't showing them the love of Jesus be just as important? I'm sure that when you talk to people about Jesus, it's not the first time that they've heard about Jesus. I'm sure they've had Mormons go up to their door saying, "Hey, would you like to hear about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?" They've had that before. They know the story. So what can we do to leave an impact on these people? What can we do to show them that they need Jesus? Well, we need to show them the love of Jesus. Because that's what they're really going to remember. That's what they're going to initially be hooked with. They've heard the story before. But show them something that they have not seen before. Well, let's continue. In verse 11, now a large herd of swine was feeding there near the mountains. So all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us to the swine, that we may enter them." And at once Jesus gave them permission. Then the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine. There were about 2,000. And the herd ran violently down into the steep place into the sea and drowned in the sea. So those who fed the swine fled, and they told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that had happened. Then they came to Jesus and saw the one who had been demon-possessed and had the legion, sitting and clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who saw it told them how it happened to him, who had been demon-possessed, and about the swine. Then they began to plead with him to depart from their region. And when he got into the boat, he who had been demon-possessed begged him that he might be with him. However, Jesus did not permit him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends, and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you, and how he has compassion on you." And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him, and all marveled. All right, so there's the ending of the story. Jesus sends all the demons, the legion, into the swine. The swine go, they drown themselves. And then that's the end of the story. Nothing else happened. No. The guy who's demon possessed, can you imagine? He doesn't have demons anymore. But do you think that he can just go out and get a job the next day? No. There's no way would this guy be able to get a job. He's still torn up. Sure, he's wearing nice clothes, he's in his right mind, but he has a history. And think about that. He goes up to Jesus and he asks him, "Please take me with you." But Jesus says, "No, I'm not going to take you with me. Instead, stay here and preach what God has done for you, what Jesus has done for you." Let me ask you a question. Do you think that this guy knew anything about the kingdom that Jesus was to fulfill? The prophecy? Do you think he knew any of that? Do you think that he knew that Jesus was going to die? He's going to be crucified and then be resurrected to reign in a heaven that we cannot see with our physical eyes? I don't think he knew that. But he was told to go out and tell people about Jesus. Oh, what was he supposed to tell them? He was supposed to tell them what Jesus had done for him. And see, that leads us to the problem that some of us, the excuse that some of us give when we say we can't evangelize. We don't know enough about Jesus. Yeah, sometimes I feel that way. Sometimes I feel I don't know everything. And you know what? I'd be right in saying that. I do not know everything. I'm sure even the great Don Wilson, does not know everything. But what does he know? He knows what Jesus has done for him. He has a testimony. And that is powerful. And people will respond to that. So you may not know everything about Jesus, but that is no excuse to not tell people about him, because you sure do know what Jesus has done for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't believe in him. So when you evangelize, when you go out to people, tell them what Jesus has done for you, just like the man who had been demon-possessed was told to do. All right. I think we have time for one more story. Please turn to John chapter 5. Don't tell it this, but I'm in love with the story. All right, starting in verse 1. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now here there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. All right, so there's our location. There's Jesus, and it's during the Feast of the Jews, which, of course, Jesus was supposed to go to. He was a Jew, after all. But where is he now? He's by the sheep gate, a pool. This is not the best place to be, Jesus. What are you doing? There's tons of sick people here. Here's a lot of broken people. I learned about lots of this by a man named Andy Cantrell. He actually had a gospel meeting at this congregation a few years ago. And he asked a question when he was teaching this point. And he asked a question, if Jesus were alive today, where would he go? And all of us were thinking real hard. None of us had any ideas. And then he gave us a hint. So Jesus, when he was alive, went to the place where all the broken people went. Where do broken people go now? To the bar. Jesus would be at the bars. And that sounds really weird, but when you think about it, yeah. Lots of people, when they're broken, when they feel they have nothing left, they don't know where to go. They're searching for something, and they go to the only thing that they have, and it's a bar. Jesus would be at the bars, and he would help them, heal them. All right? So that teaches us, when it comes to evangelizing, that we need to go where the need is. Yes, we should always be helping out our brethren, but we should also be helping those who don't have it all figured out. Which I assure you, none of us here have it all figured out. But to those who are broken, to those who are lost, those who are not saved, we need to go to those people to save them. All right, let's continue. In verse 5. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another sits down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise up, take your bed, and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed, and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. Okay, so there's a sick guy, been paralyzed all his life, completely broken. And Jesus goes up to him and asks him a really weird question. What is up with Jesus and all these weird questions? He asks him, "Do you want to be made well?" Well, duh. This guy's been paralyzed his whole life. Of course he wants to be made well, right? And so the sick man doesn't even answer his question. Instead, he answers with, I don't have anybody put me in the pool. And even when I try to get in the pool, somebody beats me there. What does that sound like? An excuse. It's an excuse. This guy is asked, "Do you want to be made well?" And he assumes, "Oh, yeah, of course I want to be made well." And then he answers with an excuse of why he can't get in. All right. Now, let's look at the evangelistic side of this. When we go up to people, and let's say we just ask this question, "Do you want to be made well?" What are some answers that people could give us? Sometimes they'd say, "Yeah, of course I want to be made well." Of course, because they're just looking at it on the surface. But do they really? Think about what you have to do, what this guy had to do after he was made well. That means he had to go get a job. He'd been laying around his whole life, just being not lazy. He was forced to be lazy, but now he has to go get a job. He has to do all that. And when we ask people, "Do you want Jesus in your life? Do you want to be made well?" Many will tell you, "It's just how I've been my whole life. I don't know any different. I've been a sinner too long. Even if I did get baptized for the remission of my sins, and I did get saved, I know that I just go back. People will give excuses. And you know what? One of the largest excuses is family often. You know, we talk about tradition a lot. People say, this is how I've always been, and sometimes it's not even, this is how I've always been. It's, this is how my family's always been. This is how my family does things. If I get baptized, my family's gonna disown me. They're gonna not like me. I'm gonna lose my friends, my family, and it's an excuse. And so, tough questions are needed to be asked. It's not easy to be evangelizing, of course. It's not easy to get people to open up, because they need to be open in order to accept Jesus. And it's not easy. So that's why tough questions are needed. Tough questions to really crack away, to open them up. And many people will be scared by those difficult, tough questions. But let's continue. So the guy gets healed, and in verse 10. The Jews therefore said to him who was cured, "It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed." He answered them, "He who made me well said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" But the one who was healed did not know who it was, because I skipped one. Then they asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" But he who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn a multitude being in that place. Afterwards Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. For this reason the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath. So this guy, this paralyzed dude, he gets healed. He now can walk. He must be so happy, and so he goes and tells people, "Hey, I'm healed. I'm saved. I'm not broken anymore." And what does he undergo? He undergoes persecution almost immediately. They ask him, "Oh, who is this guy that saved you?" And you know, that will happen many times. If let's say you do meet with someone and you do end up helping them to be converted, it's not going to be easy at first. Maybe they're right. They do have family. They do have family, and their family's not going to like this decision in their life. They're going to undergo persecution, and that's why we should have a plan. We should be ready to help them. We should show the love of Jesus, show them encouragement. And I sort of like what Jesus answers. "My Father has been working until now, and I have been working." Jesus, when we go out and evangelize and we tell people about Jesus, yeah, I guess you could say we're working. We are working. We're working for Jesus. But it's not just us. And we're not even the reasons that we're doing it. Jesus is the one working, and therefore we must also be working. He's the one doing the conversion. The Father has been working. Evangelism is very difficult, extremely difficult. And I do not have all the answers. This is not me telling you I have evangelism figured out, because I do not. Far from it. But I hope that you take these into consideration. The 4 C's: care, consciousness, craft, and courage. Because if you are deficient in even one of these, you will see that you are not evangelizing to the extent that you should. So if you're going to take anything from these lessons, I would say let it be that you should have care when you talk to people. You should have a consciousness that there are souls out there that need Jesus. You should have courage to go and talk to those people, but also intertwine with wisdom. Have a plan. And also craft. Have your speech be seasoned with salt, so that you know how you ought to answer each one. Well, this was a message. You can take out your books now. Whatever. No books, I guess. But this was a lesson primarily to people who have been saved. But if you have not been saved, this is not your mission right now. It's not your mission. If you are here and you have not been saved, your mission is different. Your mission is to learn about Jesus, to learn about what he has done for you. And if you have no idea what I've been talking about this whole time, then ask. There are people here that know and want to help you get to the answer of that question. So if you have any concerns, questions, or need encouragement or help, please let it be known as we stand and sing the invitation song.